Hi, welcome back to the channel. Working on Farmall F20 14501. All right, so we got a 70-year-old tractor here. Somebody's been into the motor, of course, to rebuild it. Pistons, sleeves, bearings. So I ran into a situation with the bearings that I questioned. I went to the engine builder that I use, and I've been online with gentlemen that have been into this type of tractor. And we found that it has aftermarket bearings in it that weren't properly set before the engine was assembled. And I can show you what we're looking at. So as you can see, I have my connecting rod, and I have my bearing cap and a bearing shell. This is the bearing shell. It's brass, and it's got bearing material here, the oil galley, the hole, and a bearing cap. In case anybody doesn't know how this works, I can explain it to you. So unlike a conventional car that pumps oil through the crankshaft to the bearing, this tractor here has a dipper on the bearing cap. All right, and what happens is when it's assembled, there's a trough in the oil pan that the oil pump fills with oil. And as the cap comes around, it dips down into that trough, oil gets into the dipper, squirts up through the oil hole, fills the oil galley, and as it continues around, it will oil the crankshaft. So that's how that works. All right, so these aftermarket bearings, what I was telling you about is they don't fit flush. All right, so I tap this side down flush, and if you can see this here, I know it's kind of tough. There's a lip. Oh, there you go. So see the lip, how that shell protrudes past the cap? Well, that protrudes, I'll do a quick measurement here, 30 thousandths. So that bearing is 30 thousandths higher than the cap, and it's actually on the connecting rod, it's another 30 thousandths. So what happens is when you shim these, and I have some shims in here, these are the shims we use to tighten up the clearance. All right, and they come in different sizes. This one's like 30 thousandths, this one I think is 15. All right, so they fit in here like this, and you can see that. Let's see if we got that. It fits in here like this, and then the connecting rod will clamp down over the top of it and tighten it all up, and this will keep the bearing clearance correct, which is between 3 to 5 thousandths bearing clearance. All right, so I did that already. I set up the bearing clearance, but I didn't like the way it looked, and I can show you why. So this one here has been done already, and I've had this on the tractor. We checked the clearance with plastic gauge, but there's a space in here. I don't know if you can see that. There's a space around the bolt, because what's happening is the shims are connecting the bearing, are contacting the bearing, both top and bottom, and because that bearing sticks out 30 thousandths, there's a space in the back of the cap. So if I was to tighten this rod bolt 60 foot-pounds of torque, it would elongate the cap itself, make it egg-shaped, because now you're squeezing down on the outside of the bearing, which is not good. So there's no little shims. Someone have taken all the little shims out, or the thin shims, so I can't get the tolerances I want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have to take these these shells. We're going to have to take them onto a surface plate, and we can hand sand them until they are flush on both sides with the cap. I have to bang that back in here. All right, and then at that point, there you go. Then at that point, we can shim it correctly so that it touches both at the bearing, at the end of the cap, and then it won't elongate the cap when we're tightening it down. I had to order a bunch of shims. You can see these are very thin shims. Well, I say order them, but they're actually used shims. I'll clean them up, and then we can properly adjust the clearance. And I will put out a video when it's time to do that. Thank you for watching.